And this one specific wander, I came to this river. Sat right to the south of this beautiful ancient red rock land, and to the south of me was this beautiful sacred mountain that they call Sleeping Ute Mountain, and in the middle was this creek that had flowed through this still semi-intact valley for millennia. I don't know how long. And I had wandered into this creek, and I do as I do at times, and I introduce myself in this way, this poetic way, this mythopoetic way, to start moving from this horizontal plane to this vertical plane. And I introduce myself by saying, I am the one who. I am the one who. Spirit dances the dark cloak on wild edges woven of grief and praise, of ancestor and earth, black widow on my heart, my hand on the deeper pulse. The voice of my ancestors flowing through my mouth like a river. And I listened, as you do once you introduce yourself in this way. And the river had a story for me. And the story went something like this. The story was of a river that flowed somewhere to nowhere, from nowhere to somewhere. And it flowed, and it flowed, and it flowed in this void, in this vastness for some time. And as time went, the river began to dream, and it dreamed the highest mountaintops, snow-capped, jagged peaks, and meadows, and wildflowers, and trees, and animals. It dreamed its way down into the foothills, the flatlands, the prairies, and all the way down into the ocean, and it dreamed it all alive. And the river became happy with the birds and the insects and the animals that lived in harmony and relationship with this sacred river. And this river went flowing on until one moment where, bubbling from underneath the river, came this light. Thousands, millions of small little lights floating from the depths of the river upward. And what came was this cosmos with the moon and the stars and the planets, and the cosmos looked down and saw the reflection of itself in the river. And immediately there became this courtship, this romantic love affair between the cosmos and the river. And together they dreamed a new kind of people that began to live too in relationship and harmony with this river and this place. And the old people who lived along the river would come and listen to the teachings of the river. They would listen to what the river would have to say, and they would take that back to the village. And pretty soon a story began within these people, and these people listened to how they could live more fully and deeper into their place in the village and in the world. And this went on for some time. They came back to the river, sharing their stories of the young people who would sit by the river or wander out in the mountain for days in prayer and come back, sharing more stories and gifts. And those were taken to the river, and the river began to flow even stronger and fuller with the stories that were told by the people, your ancestors in the river still flow today. And this went on for some time. Until one day, amongst the people, it started something like a whisper, where the people began to move away farther and farther from the river. And the farther they moved, they forgot how they live in this relationship with the beings and the river. And they began to take in ways that they hadn't taken before, without gratitude, without reverence. And they begin to build in ways that no longer fit in to the places that they were living, but began to destroy the places that they were living. And as time came, even they began to dump not stories into the river, but poison into the river. And they fell out of touch, deep, deep touch with their place and the river. And some people became sick and died. Some people went mad and crazy, killing other people. And this went on for many years, thousands of years. Some say this is where we are right now. And as this happened, there were ones who began to remember something. They heard something, they felt something call them out of the way they were living, their unhappiness, their sadness, their grief. And one went down to the river, this boy, this girl, this one that had no gender, depending who's listening, went down to the river and remembered a prayer of their ancestor that came through there from somewhere, nowhere, flowing from here to there, came through them. And to their surprise, they began to pray. This prayer was filled of gratitude for what was left of the river, for what was left of the beings that still lived in harmony, remembering their original way of living. And as the prayer came forth through this one began to see the way that the beings, the plants, the birds, the animals lived. And the river spoke. And again, to the surprise of the one standing there, the river spoke and said, "Listen, listen. The stories of your ancestors flow through this river. Listen, listen. The stories of your ancestors flow through this river, human and non-human." And the river said, "Come back and listen. Come back and bring your prayers and your stories to me. And in return, I will share the stories and the prayers of this place, of this river, of these ancestors with you. Tell the people of your village that the hour is late. Tell the people of your village that the hour is late. And to come to the river and listen." To stand here on this ruined place, to sing and dance wildly, to story your truth into the world, flowing through your mouth like a river, this ancestral song. The earth is not for yours to own. Drink from her breast, feed with her children. Listen, listen. The earth is calling. Do you remember who you are? Your voice carries her song, and with it your own.